Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Fire Up Michigan. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Judging by the way this broadcast is going to turn out, I wish I could invite Rodney Dangerfield, but there's only a little problem.
Tell you.
He's dead. So, but the Lions wouldn't mind earning some of that Rodney Dangerfield respect, anyways, after what they did to the Green Bay Packers last night over at Lambeau Field. If you folks have ever been to Lambeau Field, let me tell you, that's a bucket place. And trip all day long and then some. So with that said, let me introduce you to the crew. And how appropriate would it be to bring a Packer person on to Candy Ebling of the South Florida Tribune, aka my other half. Welcome back, Candy. I know this wasn't easy for you to come on this show, but you're our MVP, most valuable person. And we know if anybody can handle this challenge of entertainment, it is definitely you, Candace.
Well, thank you. I feel a little out of sorts because I'm normally on Fire Up Wisconsin, which is the better show, but
Wait a minute.
You're fired.
Yeah,
Take her out.
Don't tell me she doesn't get cross promotion right, because she definitely does. That's it.
Oh, I get it. I get it.
I'm happy to discuss whatever you'd like to discuss.
All right. Well, with that said, you know what? I'm going to take a break from the crew, and whoever gets to read this one, other than Mr. Will Vogel. All right, who's in charge of reading that?
I gotcha. Hi, guys. I've told people all year the Lions are going to be a team that will get better and better each year. Coach Campbell is a coach you would love to play for and give everything you got for. And he's absolutely right. We've seen it on the field.
Evidently we have. But with that said, we'll go with the proper introduction. Smoking Jeremy B, welcome back.
Oh, glad to be back. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year to you as well. And George Eichhorn, welcome back.
Good to be here and good to bask in that Lions victory.
Yeah, well, we got a lot of Lions stuff to get to. And by the way, Candy Ebling and I covered the Jacksonville Jaguars defeating the Tennessee Titans. They are the AFC South Division champs. Congratulations to the Jaguars. The irony between the Lions and the Jaguars wins this week is they were both by 20-16 scores. Lions beating the Packers 20-16. The Jaguars took care of the Titans 20-16 as well. So with that said, we'll talk about the fact that Lions are now 9-8, or 8-2 in their last 10 games, swept 2 from the Green Bay Packers and eliminated Green Bay. Well, okay, Candy, what's your take on it? At least she pulled out the old Packers hat, so this is didn't quite work out for you that you were swept by them this year.
That is true, Scott. We were swept by the Lions this year. We've had a difficult year. I would say I would give you guys kudos. I think your Dan Campbell hire was very good. I think he's a motivator, and I think he gets his teams and his players playing for him from start to finish, no matter where they're at the game, whether they're down by 20 or up by 20. I give you guys a lot of kudos for that. I also give you guys kudos for getting Aiden Hutchinson in the draft. I think you guys drafted really well. My Packers, obviously, they did not have the season that they wanted to. There's always rumors about, will Aaron come back? Will he not come back?
That presser after the game has me confused about him.
That's
a
sweet.
lot of things have got me confused about it, because some of the things he said lean towards him coming back, and some of the things totally lean towards him riding off into the sunset.
Especially that whole carousel analogy, that one right there, that the way he ended that presser saying, sometimes when you're on the carousel, you just realize it's time to get off. And Will Vogel's back.
Yeah, as they say in the soap opera world, as the Aaron turns. So with that said, Jeremy, the Lions do win 2 against the Packers by all means. Now, let's face the reality. I think the biggest downfall for the Packers this year was that Rodgers never got on the same page with his wide receivers. Patrick Mahomes took a lot of his receivers down to Texas, got on the same page. Anytime you have a relatively new receiver corps, it's wise to get on the same page. And I know that the drama surrounding Rodgers all year, it didn't enable him to do it. Or maybe he thought he was better than he was. I don't know. So
Well, Will Vogel asked, "Did my first comment show?" Yes, I read it live on there, and also he says, "Hi guys," again.
Well, if he's really worried about it, then you know what?
Let's do it again.
There you go. There you go.
Will Vogel says, "Hi guys, I've told people all year that the Lions are going to be a team that will get better and better each year. Coach Campbell is a coach you would love to play for and give everything you got for."
All right, well, now you have it. You get twice as much exposure. But getting back to the whole thing about it, Aaron Rodgers' lack of familiarity, I think, really was a detriment to the Packers with his wideouts. Obviously, you have your running attack being what it is, less Jameson Williams, who the Lions acquired as free agent, I think, 1 or 2 years ago. But George, continue on, Jeremy, about the Lions sweeping the pack this year.
Well, we didn't just sweep the pack, though. We swept the Bears and we split with Minnesota, which I said as soon as the schedule came out and I saw the rosters, the way they were lining up prior to the preseason. I said the Lions will go 5-1 in the division. I'm not saying they'll win the division, but right now, the way I'm looking at it, it should be Minnesota, either Lions or Packers at 2 or 3, and Bears in the basement.
Despite the fact that they got the number 1 pick and have $24 million in their pocket for free agents. We've seen a lot of the first scenarios. I've seen them firsthand with the Lions and Jaguars making complete turnarounds within a year's time. Go ahead, George.
Well, I have to disagree. I would have never predicted. I would never have given Detroit a chance to win 9 games this year, nor would I ever given them a chance to sweep the Packers this year. So I'm not one that's going to sit and say, I told you so. And I'm telling you that this is not the typical Lions year. This is something of a phenom that we have seen and sort of a revolution going on this team right now. The way they finished is outstanding. The way they handled Green Bay is remarkable, really, compared to previous Lions teams. And the fact that they beat Green Bay in the standings. So take that. So it's not only 9-8, but you finish in second place.
Right.
It's just an incredible turn of events. Will's right on target. They'll play for this coach. They'll play for him at midnight. They'll play for him on Belle Isle. They'll play for him in Alaska if they have to. They love him. They love their coach. And all that being said, it was a great victory for Detroit and a very happy ending to a long 17-game season that really turned out in Detroit's favor.
Yeah, also keep in mind, though, they beat the Packers last year, the final game of the year, so I believe they have a 3-game winning streak. I think Jordan Love was under center last year as well.
Yes.
No.
Right, Scott.
What's the overall record between the two?
I don't care.
I don't care. Don't care.
Yeah,
I
that's
think you
what
guys got like a 32-game lead on us. And I know that there's a tie in there, too, from back prior to when Favre was there. I think it was Dan the Magic Man Mikowski was the one responsible for the tie that year. But what do I know about NFL history and the Lions?
What do I know about you? George and I lived it. Everybody else is talking about George and I lived it. No, we all know, Candy, that by the time the Lions ever get even with the Packers, I'll be residing in Wisconsin, intermit over Wisconsin Memorial Gardens, where I'm at. I'll be buried. I won't be buried. I'm actually in a mausoleum that finally had our gravesite. There's no such thing. Well, then mausoleums, museums, whatever you call those.
I'll be feeding the fish at the mouth of the Asable River like my son.
So I'm not worried about us ever catching up with you, Candy. You guys, I'll give her the one thing she really has over the 3 of us clowns, that the Packers own the Lions. Although at least the one thing we can fall back on is, at least, unlike the Bears, where the Packers own the Bears, you can't say that in the last few games. So with that said, here's some other interesting stats I want to bring up. And, Will is certainly going to be our college football playoff guy here, because none of us are watching it, but he says, sorry, non-Michigan related. But Bennett has 2 rushing TDs for Georgia. That's fine. So he's keeping up stabs. You guys can, but I got some other interesting stats I want to point out that are really pretty cool. Teams with a winning record after being 5+ games under 500. There's only 4 of them, and some of the stuff I get is on Instagram. So if you want to know where I get some of my good material, Instagram definitely helps me in that sense. But the Lions in 2022 began 1-6, ended up 9-8. 2021, the Dolphins were 1-7. ended up 9-8. In 1970, the Bengals were 1-6 and ended up 8-6. And in 1962, yes, the year I was born, the Buffalo Bills are 0-5, and they finished 7-6-1. All right, George, I'm going to swing it around counterclockwise. What are your thoughts about the fact that only 4 teams with 5? That's a pretty interesting stat.
And I think the Bungles are the last one to make the playoffs after starting so crappy, if I'm not mistaken, because they kept saying that. Remember, Jeremy?
Mhm.
They said that the Bungles were the last ones to do that. I think it's very impressive, Scott. I'm very impressed with you, Scott, in getting those statistics as well. But it just shows you how difficult it is, like you stated, with those 4 teams in history, and now the Lions becoming part of that history. Even though they failed to make the playoffs, it's not their fault. It really isn't. And the turnarounds are not that easy in pro football. Although I will tell you this, it seems like they become a little bit more commonplace in the most recent past, as far as making the playoffs after you didn't make the playoffs, all that stuff. I mean, let's face it, last year 3 wins and this year 9. The Lions, it's just a tremendous turnaround and one for the books. I like it. And I like the fact that, Scott, like you said, you were able to get those off of Instagram.
Well, ironically, believe it or not, Brian Flores, who's supposed to interview for the Cleveland Browns defensive coordinator, is actually the one that coached the Dolphins in 2021. And of course, he landed as a linebackers coach with Pittsburgh for this year anyways. Hopefully Brian will be able to get a head coaching job at some point down the line. But if he lands with Cleveland as a defensive coordinator, at least he still has a name out there. So the Dolphins still let him go. So for whatever it's worth. All right, Jeremy, seems like the Lions are on the wrong end of a lot of stats, but it's all right to be on the right end of some stats, more so the right end instead of the wrong. Go ahead, take it from there, Jeremy.
You know what? Those are amazing stats, and it's amazing what they did. And will I say that I didn't waver mid-season when we were 1-6? No, I can't say that because you guys know. I told you guys then. I said I had him at a 7 to 10 win season going into the season when I first started talking with you guys. I said, but I wavered, and I said I see 5 to 7 wins. And then after they won a few, I was like, no, I'm taking it back. They're going to hit that 9 this year.
Well,
do you remember that, George?
Yeah, I do remember that. And you're right, Jeremy. You did go on the record way back in the beginning of the season.
Well, amazingly enough, Jeremy, in that window that we're talking about, TJ Hawkinson got traded. Everybody thought the Lions were.
I was the only one that said this was a great trade. Remember, you didn't like it, George. Scott didn't like it at the time. And I sat there, I goes, he was leading the team in drops. He had 2 good games out of 8 games or 7 games. He wasn't worth what he wanted.
Well, face the reality, Jeremy. I'm not afraid to give credit where it's due. So if you want to go ahead and buy a balloon, blow that thing up bigger than up there.
No, you want to know what I'm happy about?
What's that?
Our team has a winning record, in the same old Lions narrative. It's in the rearview mirror being lowered into the grave right now. The dirt's not thrown on it yet, but it's being lowered. I'm not saying that they can't rise like Lazarus, but hey, it's a lot better than what it was.
I've always created my existence, Jeremy, in this business. You give credit where it's due, which is why the TJ Hawkinson comment was brought up. Give you credit where it's due. With that said, don't say anything because otherwise your next one line will be 2 or 3 minutes. So leave it alone so Candy gets a piece of the action. That's just kidding with you, Jeremy. I only kid because I love your energy.
Yeah. But you got to remember, TJ is still on the division champions and he's going to the Pro Bowl.
And you know what?
Well, it's not a total. All I'm saying, it's not a total bad trade for Minnesota.
No, it's not. No. And he provided a whole whopping 4 touchdowns for him since he got there.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm not going to win any Minnesota fans here, but I have a feeling that the Minnesota Vikings, to me, don't make the Final Four. I mean,
I can't. I agree with you.
I as much as I hate to say it, I think they're the most fraudulent division winner going into the playoffs. We knew Brady and the Bucs would be bad, but we knew that whole division would be bad.
Right.
So we expected. Well, the whole division's bad, so it's
Well,
Brady's to lose.
I think the Giants are frauds too, but they're in a wild card, not a division winner.
Well, the
Well, you know
Giants
what? Wait a
didn't
minute,
do it
George.
with smoke and mirrors, though. They
Yeah, but
did
you
it
know what,
because
George?
they finally had their running back healthy.
Yeah. George, hold on. Sorry to interrupt you guys, and gal. Okay, but I think the Giants are in much better shape than most people think that they are. This team was on house money. Nobody expected them to do a darn thing. And how's it worked out? You're bringing Brian Dable, who's won championships everywhere with Belichick and Saban and whatnot. This guy knows how to win. All right, let me turn it over to Candy while she's waiting patiently about this particular statistic. Can
I think it's pretty impressive. I do have to say, I wonder ease of schedule on with some of those.
I'm sorry. Will Vogel popped in and I read what he said about what I like to call TJ.
I also would wonder about injuries in the season. How many teams were affected? Who was the most affected team by injuries? I think you guys played well. I would say that for the Packers, like our offensive line was injured, different parts of it, a lot of the season. So you put a lot of blame, Scott, on Rodgers not practicing with the wide receivers. That's part of it. But part of it is also your offensive line. Your offensive line gave Jared Goff the 2 days worth of time to throw yesterday. He had all the time in the world. If he couldn't make those passes, and there were a bunch of them that he didn't make, it would be unbelievable. I mean, if you would have put Rodgers in with that same offensive line, there would have been a different outcome.
Yeah, well, I'll say this much. Penei Sewell may not have been a sexy pick like Jamar Chase and Jalen Waddle, but boy, how has that worked out for the Honolulu?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And we also, real quick, I just wanted to add one thing. We already had our first coach fired in Lovie Smith. That happened last night.
That's a shame.
It is a shame. That's the second year in a row they one and done coaches. You shouldn't do that. That's a horribly ran organization right now.
Well, Cliff Kingsbury got booted again today too. Just so you know.
Well, that
was expected. That one was.
Let's get back.
What I did want to say is on topic. The reason why I brought that up is the Texans have already reached out to interview Ben Johnson. I said he'd get head coaching interviews this year.
Well, I think he will too. I mean, you know, I know the coaching thing will be something that's wide open, and over the course of the next several episodes, we're going to probably get into that. We'll see if he lands a spot, but I don't consider that Houston Texans job a premium.
I just wanted to interject. Candy's absolutely right, Scott and Jeremy. The Lions, with the health of the defense, now the offensive line wasn't healthy all year for Detroit, but you're right, Candy. It was much more healthier than the one that protected Aaron Rodgers. No question about it.
100%. I'm not going to question that at all. And also, you want to think about something. This is now 34 straight regular season games that the Lions have not had their starting 5 on the O-line.
Amazing.
Yeah,
I didn't know it was that high.
I wasn't sure it was that high either.
Well, because remember, we started with Taylor Decker last year. We started with Taylor Decker on the IR for the first 8 games. And then by the time he came back, Ragnow got hurt.
Right.
So we never had our whole O-line last year. And then this year, Vaitai hurt his back in the first preseason game and never played it down after that.
That's true.
Well, we'll throw in stats at you everywhere. Guess what? We're going on to something else. But this time we're talking about some national television. And by the way, Vogel, if you're still paying attention, we might decide to bring on Fire Up Michigan down the road if the committee agrees here to bring you on. We got to just make sure, though, this is a committee decision. It's not going to be solo anymore. So, just think about it. It is a committee, Will Vogel. You have to be voted in for an episode, but keep contributing anyways. All right. Give them something to think about anyways. And keep typing, Will, okay? Because I can't type that fast if I tried. Meanwhile, let's talk about the Lions' first appearance, national TV. On NBC, excluding Thanksgiving. Now, I want to talk about how many people gave this team a chance to win. ESPN had Dominic Foxworth, Kimberly A. Martin, Chris Canty, Damian Woody, the former Lion, all picked Green Bay. So there you go. It's fine. If it's not, it's okay. Don't worry. Well, just stay tuned, man, for updates. For that again, Dominic Foxworth, Kimberly A. Martin, Chris Canty, Damian Woody, all pick Green Bay. I will tell you of all the people that they do. I do like Diana Rossini, but haven't seen her in a while. She's doing the mom thing for a little while, though. She made an appearance over the weekend. But then NBC had Jack Collinsworth, who was actually 10-5, Rodney Harrison 12-6, Mike Florio 12-6 with his picks, Matthew Berry 15-3, Chris Sims 14-4, Maria Taylor 12-6, Jason Garrett 10-7. They all picked Green Bay, and Tony Dungy from Jackson, Michigan, I think it is.
Yes,
Yep.
he is.
11-7, and once upon a time, thanks to his recommendation, Jim Caldwell was the last Lions full-time coach to get a winning record. So I'm going to start off with you, George. Respect, lack of respect.
Well,
only one person got it right out of this group.
I'll tell you what, there's not much respect out there for the Lions entering that game. That's for darn sure. And then in the Detroit Free Press, 3 out of the 5 Free Press sports writers picked Green Bay to win. And the Detroit News, it was 50-50. 2 guys picked the Lions and 2 guys picked Green Bay.
And
No respect. No
90
respect.
97 won the ticket. I think 80% of them said Green Bay was winning.
There you go. Well, you know what the thing is they're looking at the history. They're looking at Lambeau. They're looking at the frozen tundra.
Yeah.
They're looking at Aaron Rodgers, da-da-da-da-da. Well, you can throw all those things out.
I had to set them straight because they said, well, the Lions rushing defense gives up 5.3 yards per carry. I said, you have to look at what they give up to mobile quarterbacks versus running backs. I said, that 5.3 includes the mobile quarterbacks. If you take that away, and which I had and did the math, it went down to 3.4 yards per carry, which Green Bay actually had a decent night. They got 3.7 yards per carry out of their running backs.
I'll tell you what, Jeremy, you're really digging for those stats, but that's a good one. I appreciate you sharing that with us tonight. But no, you're right, Scott. All the pundits, and that's why running back got so emotional in that interview after the game where he told these people to stop it and just listen to the Lions. They want to win. They're hungry, and they obviously beat all those prognosticators.
Yep. I loved it when he said, we're not playing. You know what I mean? Because that's their job. They're not playing.
Well, let me break down this list. Candy, give me your take, and I want to go over this list a little bit more in detail. Go ahead, Candy.
What are we talking about again? I'm sorry.
We're talking about the Lions' first appearance on national TV, and I would say 99% of these people that I just mentioned didn't pick them. Tony Dungy was the lone
That's better
individual.
I think a lot of them thought if you looked at their score, they predicted a very close score. They
Right.
gave the edge to the Packers, yes, probably because of home field. Typically, and I realize this was a game in January, but December, the Packers are unbeaten at home. They knew it was going to be cold. I don't think anybody saw all the fumbles and all the balls being knocked out of people's hands as much as it was last night. But yes, the Lions, I don't think have gotten the respect that maybe they deserve in previous years. I think it's becoming better and better. And I think you have Dan Campbell to really thank for that.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say you could thank the Fords. I would say you would thank Dan Campbell.
Well, I heard, actually, now that you brought up Campbell, that he went on a Zoom call when he was being interviewed for the job, and he went ballistic in front of their ownership, how badly he wanted. So, I don't know the contents of the Zoom call, but if you're going to sit there and tell me that I want this job in the manner that he did, and that's not like they don't know about the guy, you might as well give him a chance. And, again, I know they're in the year 2 in their rebuild program, and he signed a 6-year contract. So he has security. So for all those bold fourth down plays he has, not like he doesn't have any job security behind it. So with that said, I want to talk about the Lions and the Packers.
Wait, I think Jeremy's biting his tongue.
All right,
No,
go on, Jeremy.
I'm just listening. I'm
Okay.
just listening.
Okay. Well, there you go. Well, with that said, I told Candy how many weeks ago that this game was going to be flexed to prime time, right, Candy?
Yes, you did.
And why did I tell him it would be flexed, Candy?
Because he said it would come down to, it would be an important game to determine something.
Yeah, as soon as I saw that we were playing, the Lions were playing in Lambeau in Week 18 versus in Detroit, I said they think this game is going to mean something. I said it when the schedule came out.
Well, it's not the first time they've done that, though.
No, but if you look at all the years that we played in Lambeau for the last game of the season, do you know what's been on the line every time? Before this, the divisional championship has been on the line every time, and we've won 2 out of the last 7.
Yeah.
Well, remember, I believe Jim Caldwell, didn't he win a game over at Lambeau, if I remember right?
Yeah, but that was in the middle of the year, not the end of the year.
Well, it doesn't matter. He still won one there.
Yeah, I just say we've won now 4 in the last decade.
Right. But my point here is when I made this prediction 3 or 4 weeks ago, not the last week, and I said that NBC was looking for a money grab with the division title. That's all it came down to. You think about the Lions, forget about all these other rivalries out there. Anytime you have a rivalry that dates back to the 30s and the 40s, those are the games. If you get teams that are even somewhat competitive, they're going to put them on if they're even close. Candy got to take pictures, okay, at Lambeau Field the night before my birthday, and your mom was she was on cloud 9, as was the rest of your family. And in fact, it got so interesting. Everybody in her family had to find her winter clothes to go to Lambeau, as well as a game that we did over at Camp Randall. And you want to talk about a team effort to get this girl to keep her from being frostbitten out there. My in-laws were unbelievable. When I said a few weeks ago, the Lions and the Packers game was going to be flexed because it was a divisional opponent and NBC was looking for a rivalry, and this was a no-brainer.
Yep, it was either that one or it would have been the only other one that would have been close was Jacksonville Titans.
Well, but you know what?
That was
Saturday night. Make the difference.
So they did it Saturday night, right? That's what I'm saying.
I know, I was there.
No, I told you guys a long time ago they were looking seriously at the NFC East too. With you got Dallas and Washington, you got the Giants, and you had all those. But those things were all decided. That's why they didn't pick the Cowboys or the Giants, guys, because those races were decided.
Those races were decided.
Don't kid yourselves. If those races were not decided, those bigwigs in New York City, they would have picked the Giants or the Cowboys game.
Well, you know what, George? Let me tell you something, man. Okay. This is going to get interesting now. Okay. So every now and then, George and I, okay, we could go at it. Okay. And now we're going to do it. Okay. That was a hypothetical if I ever saw about the NFC East. That division hadn't been around nearly as long as the NFC North, as Chris Berman would say. So I don't care what you say about Washington, Dallas. I don't know what a stinker that turned out. We all know that Jalen Hurts got busted up a little bit. Yeah, busted up Hurts. Yeah, okay. And I missed my caffeine over there. It could be a whole lot worse. Okay. But I have calls after the broadcast. So no, George, that's hypothetical. You sit here and tell me an NFC North division between the Lions and Packers, and I'll take that all day long, or the NFC East. I don't care about all those.
If there had been a Monday night game, it'd have been tonight.
Pardon me?
If there had been Monday Night Football in Week 18, but there isn't because of the national championship. They don't want to go up against it.
Well, and they want the teams to prepare for the playoffs, having 6 days off.
My point here about that rival, this is a no-brainer anyways. And by the way, who is doing the telecast, George? A guy by the name of Mike Tirico. And by the way, where does he live? In Ann Arbor, Michigan. Ever heard of it? You know, it happens to be in the area. So, but no, I knew all along.
It's no difference where they're from.
You know what? I don't care about the Dallas Cowboys. I saw them lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I know, but I'm just saying, if those teams were still in play for that division, they might have selected them instead of Detroit. I'm just saying, it's all hypothetical.
Yeah, might. Guess what? For the sake of this show, it didn't happen, and it worked out better for everybody, so that we can talk about it and let everybody in the chat room, as well as in the comments or where they can all debate us all day long. But meanwhile, Mike Tirico is doing it with Chris Collinsworth. Mike's from our neck of the woods anyhow, in the Ann Arbor. And I'm glad that the Lions and the Packers, that there's some respect. When you think about it, anytime and these major networks get an opportunity, whether it's Thanksgiving or whatnot to put the Lions, Packers on, the Lions and the Bears, and the Bears and the Packers. If you forget the Vikings, they haven't been around nearly as long as the other three. Sorry if I'm alienating any Minnesota fans, but the reality of the situation, Detroit, Chicago, and Green Bay, you get an opportunity to
Black
put
and blue division. That's
We
right.
got about
and I'll
7.
even take it a step further. Okay, that's this. If you get an opportunity to put the Red Wings on national TV versus a doormat franchise like the Florida Panthers, okay, and I'm sorry about you Florida Panthers, so I'm getting you a little upset, but they'll take original 6 teams all day long. They will, because you want the original 6 and you want to go out there and try to preserve it as much as you possibly can to keep the rivalries in track. I'll take original 6 matchup on TV all day long because of the history that they have. Again, don't get me wrong. The Panthers had a heck of a year last year, winning the President's Cup, and now things are kind of evening out a little bit because they were playing the win card. But I don't want to take away from the topic matter. But the Lions and the Packers, that was a no-brainer. And don't tell me that the ratings. I'll be curious to find out what the ratings were last night in terms of what the Lions and the Packers were.
Well, I know it was a hit in Seattle.
They'll come
Yeah.
out. They'll come out very
I
strong.
haven't really,
So,
gotten to that yet.
Scott,
Yeah.
the matchup, which began at 8:20 p.m. Eastern, averaged 23.4 million viewers for NBC, making it the most watched Sunday Night Football season finale in 6 years.
There you go.
Boom.
There you go. There's our
That being
correct
said-
researcher here.
So I
There you
hate
go.
to say, Will, NFC least was NFC best if it was the most watched in the last 6 years.
Yep. That being said, Will's got about quite a few comments. The one he says about TJ Hawkinson is, says, you like to call him TJ Droppinson, right, Jeremy? And then he said, yes, it was a lack of respect, the pundits picking against Detroit. And he says, you can ask Jeremy on his roundtable show. I picked the Lions a lot, even against my Panthers. And then he agreed with me on something else I said. And he calls the NFC East the NFC least. But this year they were the NFC beast. They got 3 of their 4 teams in the playoffs. They flipped the switch from what happened out in the West. It switched coasts this year.
Yes, they did.
And as much as I hate to say it, I could see that happening with the NFC North next season.
All depends about Green Bay and what they do to improve.
It really depends upon Green Bay and what the Bears do if they're smart with their money and who they draft this year. They have a chance of being a really improved team as well.
Well, let me tell you, let's get back to a Candy statistic for a moment, okay? And again, I am going to say I told you so. I knew a few weeks ago this would be a draw, and she just went out there and gave you reasons why. NBC was smart. They knew that they had a division rival, let alone this one. It didn't hurt that the intrigue was Detroit beat the Packers earlier in the year. That got them on this incredible run anyhow. And all of a sudden you lead up to the finale. And to me, it's starting to become a point where the Lions and the Packers are playing at the end of one of the last 2 games of the year anyhow, so it doesn't matter. And they seem to be content with that rival. It doesn't work out just by accident. It seems like the NFL scheduling department has these 2 rivals, middle of the year, then later in the year. So I would, Candy's numbers, read them back again one more time, Candy. I need to hear this one again.
The matchup, which began at 8:20 p.m. Eastern, averaged 23.4 million viewers for NBC, making it the most watched Sunday Night Football season finale in 6 years.
And don't think they aren't going to take those stats and record them in to what games they want next year and where they're going to place them. For all we know, the Lions and the Packers can end up being on national TV on 2 platforms and not 1 next year. You never know. Or whether they're on things. It's just hard to tell with the scheduling. I don't want to overblow this thing, but
yeah, they're overdue to put the Packers and the Lions on Thanksgiving again. It's overdue.
Mm-hmm.
I think so too.
It's been too long.
Being said, I have the list of home and away opponents for the Lions next season already.
That's for another show. Let's stay on topic. Yeah.
Okay.
By all means. Thanks, George. All right. So with that said, Dan Campbell didn't have to worry about any motivation last night. He didn't care about the playoffs. He just wanted to knock out Green Bay. So, Jeremy, go ahead.
Yeah. Kirby Joseph put out a tweet just before the game. If we're not going, neither are you, and put a picture of Aaron Rodgers up.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
Let's face it, though. Going into before Sunday's games, there was a chance that Detroit could make the playoffs, the Packers could make the playoffs, or Seattle. So everybody in preparation until the actual game time was prepping to win because they knew they all had a chance to get into the playoffs.
Absolutely. And
that's a good statement, and that's very true. And the only thing I didn't like is the fact that Seattle game got done before the Detroit and Green Bay even kicked off. But
you know what?
That happens that way.
I loved what Dan Campbell said when he was interviewed at halftime, coming out of the just before the locker room. Did you guys watch the game? He goes, no, we didn't. We paid no attention to it because we didn't care. We still found out because people got their alerts on their phones and stuff like that, but we didn't care. We were here to play a football game. We were here to win one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he had to keep that Detroit team focused. That's a good point, Jeremy. That's right on, because otherwise he could have lost those guys. Oh my God, Seattle won. It's over. No. That's not that's the SOL team.
Right.
And that's not this team.
That post by Kirby Joseph went out at 7:58 p.m., so he already knew the results of the Seattle game.
Well, they were saying that that the Fords were on the field and they were watching with the game, the Seattle
fans. Yep.
With some fans. Now, one thing I will also say is that not only were Detroit playing for respect, but they're also playing for their jobs for next year. And that's one thing we all forget is that this was a regular season game.
Sure.
It's not like they were sitting anybody down and not, we don't want to get them injured, or we want to see what we have to build on for next year.
Absolutely. A good point, Candy, because you guys are all playing for next year in a way. Everybody is, but especially a lot of those guys that the Lions are taking a close look at.
Or anybody that's under a contract year.
Right.
Yeah, like
Khalif Raymond here, or
Khalif Raymond, Jamal Williams, Evan Brown, Matt Nelson. I mean, there's a whole bunch of UDFAs and prove it players we signed this past year. Mm-hmm. And Jamal Williams, this is his contract year because this is his second year. Yep. And I don't know if I'd give him the bag, but I definitely would talk to him seriously if he would give us a little bit of a hometown discount after his tweet the other day.
Well, I mean, with all that being said, though, the one thing I will say is, to me, the Lions own the Rams' first-round pick, 6 overall, and they have their own at 18.
Yeah.
And you got Brad Holmes, to me, who I think should be a viable candidate for
exec of the year.
Hey, Candy, before we go any further, why don't you give everybody an overview of where they can find us?
So if you are watching us for the first time, you're going to see a red subscribe button. Or if you've seen us before, but you just haven't subscribed to us, why not? I don't understand. Please hit that red subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner. Listen to us if you would like to listen on podcasts. If you're driving home and you're like, oh, what do I listen to? Listen to us on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you have any questions or comments, please put them in our chat or email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Check out our website, southfloridatribune.com. You can see Jeremy's writing, George's writing, Scott's writing, and my pictures. Why wouldn't you come to our website? And if you want to advertise or you want to sponsor a show, call Scott 954-304-4941.
Thank you very much. Well done, Candy. So getting back to my point, Brad Holmes to me is a guy that, you wonder what the free agent situation is going to look like. He'll know which ones he wants to retain.
Well, you're right, Scott. And the other thing is that now that Detroit won, you'll get some of these guys that'll give Detroit a good, serious look. You know, when you talk about free agents, that's always important in the off season. Is what do they perceive the Lions to be? Well, before this, I'm sorry, it's been SOL.
Losers.
Yeah.
That's what they thought.
So now Brad and Coach Campbell have a proof in the pudding, as they say, right? Detroit's a winning team right now.
It's a winning culture.
Yeah. Culture. That's a better word for it.
That's what I want to talk about real quick, because that's what all this breeds back into. What happened this year with the way they started and the way they finish, it changed a lot of minds of a lot of people. For weeks now, how many times have we heard national media people going ahead and saying, yeah, I like Detroit. They're doing good things there. We've never heard that midseason, even when we were having good years. You know what we used to hear when we were having a good year? Oh, they're just waiting for the next wheel to fall off the wagon again. That's what we used to hear.
Well, one guy actually who I did happen to see a bit of was Louis Riddick, who I think should have a general managerial job somewhere. Why he hasn't gotten of ESPN says he expects the Lions to be pretty good for the next 5 years or so.
Because he quit twice, but anyways.
Pardon me?
He quit twice. He was the head scout for one team, quit there, became the GM of another, and didn't even make it past preseason.
Right. Well, but you know what? Sometimes you take a break, and what happens, you become a little wiser too. If you want any proof of that, all you need to do is go to Dick Vermeil, who was burned out, and all it did was turn into a Super Bowl championship, which, by the way, George Eichhorn did happen to. I believe you were there for Dick Vermeil's.
I sure was.
So, but
The
yeah,
Rams.
getting to Louis Riddick, though, his comments today really indicated that, you know, he believes Detroit will be strong for the next 5-6 years or so, and that they could be Super Bowl contenders as early as next year, which we'll see. I don't know. But it just goes to show you that the continuous respect, if you play hard for your coach and you play an entire 60 minutes without giving up, then that just shows you that that type of energy and becomes more or less contagious. So more power to Louis. So we'll talk about the Seattle Seahawks. I know fan bases do crazy things, but if I were the Seattle Seahawks fans, what I would really do is they should send the Lions a lot of fish from the Pike Street Market for getting into playoffs. Because if you've ever been to Seattle, the Pike Street Market is a heck of a tourist place. I'll get you there, Candy. They throw fish all over the place. It's unreal. But you know, I mean, the Bills fans are known for sending chicken wings and all these other places, but Seattle fans, if we have any followers out there nationally here, and send the Lions a little fish and give them a healthy lunch or dinner or whatever, you know. And
think about this: the Bills sent the entire Bengals defense one year gift cards to go out to eat at one of their premier restaurants because they beat the Ravens and knocked them out of the playoffs that year.
Remember that, yeah. So, but I'm talking about Seattle, okay? Not Sleepless in Seattle, one of my favorite movies.
I know. I get it.
Seattle fans, where you know, once upon a time I saw a game over at the Kingdom, and I saw a basketball game over at the Key Arena. They've redone that 9 million times over. But Seattle Seahawks fans, if you're out there listening, send the Lions a little bit of post-Christmas love and send them some fish. I'm sure they'd appreciate it, because you never know if you're going to need a favor. Although they get to see him next year anyways, I believe, over at Ford Field. Of course, in Stephen A. Smith's eyes, he still thinks that they play at the Silverdome. But Stephen A., that's okay. I'll forgive you for that one.
I got some more coaching news for you. Guess who just got fired from New England?
Not Bill.
Matt Patricia.
Well, did he really?
Yes.
Oh.
Well, paving the way for Ryan to.
It's not like we didn't see it coming.
Wow, that's okay.
You know, and you're right, Scott. Seattle is quite a story because, you know, here they get rid of their all-star quarterback, okay? And probably nobody was giving them much a chance to make the playoffs. And lo and behold, the Seahawks sneak in. And, you know, I got to give them credit. They got a little help from those officials, though, in that game. There's some very questionable calls in that Seattle game against the Rams. Very questionable.
Especially that running into the punter call. That was ridiculous.
Well, I think when you talk about Seattle, though, overall, I think they beat the Lions in their head-to-head meeting earlier.
Yes, they did. You're right.
And that was probably one of the tiebreakers that may have factored into it. And another thing that probably factored in was the fact that Geno Smith replaces Russell Wilson and gets him.
Yeah.
Go figure that. And I think that Geno Smith got some bonuses out of it as well. Thanks to the breaking news about your favorite coach.
Yeah. I love giving great news about Matt Patricia.
Yeah. And you know what, Jeremy, when you get rich doing these broadcasts, you could probably go ahead and go over to the U.S. Department of Trademarks and trademark Patricia, because I'm sure that'll be in high demand. But just make sure that you have a good business person. Candy, can you find a good business person to help trademark Patricia? We know him in Florida, but we don't know him in Michigan.
Yes, but can I make a couple comments on this Seattle San Francisco?
Yeah.
So they have met each other 49 times. Seattle is winning that series 30-19, but the 49ers beat them both times already this year. So, they always do say it is hard to beat a team 3 times in the same season. Now, with that being said, I would say San Francisco is playing very good ball compared to, and I think it would have been tough had it been Detroit, Green Bay, or Seattle. I think any of those teams would have their hands full against San Francisco. They are just playing lights out near the end of the season.
But I still think both teams would have gave a better game than what Seattle has the chance of doing.
I completely agree.
Yeah, well, let's face the reality. Just because Seattle got in the playoffs means you get to play one more game and drop draft positions. In the end, the 49ers and Eagles are, in my opinion, the odds-on favorite to come out of the NFC to get to the Super Bowl.
Mine too, Scott. Mine too.
Yeah, I don't believe in the Dallas Cowboys. We saw them for,
I think they're going to win week 1 because Tampa Bay is that bad this year.
yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But that being said,
They're Jekyll and Hyde. The Cowboys are
who's
Jekyll.
leading in interceptions this year as a quarterback? Oh, yeah, that's Dak Prescott because he's had 8 games in a row with 7 of them being multiple pick games where he threw picks.
Yeah, well, I mean, all I can do is judge the Cowboys by the eye test. So when I saw the hot, and I repeat, hot Jacksonville Jaguars do and show no quit what they did, to me, I was totally impressed. The fact that not only what Jacksonville did was impressive, but Dallas did not impress me one bit at all, and I think they're going to be out soon enough. So.
Especially after receiving the beatdown they did in Detroit.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a beatdown. You can say what you want, but 40-16 is an absolute humiliating, devastating blow to a team's psyche usually, and they used it as motivation.
40-14 or 40-16. I don't remember what the score
I think it was 40-16, may have been 40-14. Either
Yeah,
way,
I think that's the last time that they had lost anyway. So after the Lions game,
right? That was the last time they lost.
Right. Yeah,
That's what I'm saying. They used it as motivation. A lot of teams, it'll break your psyche to lose like that. Just like the Lions kind of used that game versus Carolina, the beat down we received from them as motivation.
Yeah, they did.
All I'll say is I've gotten to see him a couple times. Doug Peterson's a heck of a coach.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying
question.
anything about Doug Peterson and his coaching ability.
No question.
He has more coaching ability in his pinky than Urban Meyer has brains in his head.
Oh, wow. God, set up another show, Jeremy. Don't
We got
worry.
a score update. And it's a runaway. Georgia 38, TCU 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Vogel, for
Jim
saving
Harbaugh,
me.
did you hear that score? 38-7, Jim.
Different
And
teams.
you couldn't beat these frogs.
Yeah.
They're
well,
not frauds.
yeah.
No,
well,
I
I'm
said
not-
frogs.
Oh, frogs. Okay. I was
I'm
like,
not
come
watching
on.
it. I have better things to do anyway, so than watch that mismatch.
I agree, Scott.
If you don't mind, I'd like to give my parting shot because I do have a show to get to.
Sure.
Okay, go right ahead.
My parting shot was even though the Lions couldn't make the playoffs, they are second overall in the division with a 5-1 record in the division, the best record against division opponents. And the SOL nickname should be in the rearview mirror as it gets lowered into the ground. We're not throwing dirt on it, but same old Lions is dead.
Okay. All right. Well, you know what? That's it. If you got another show, Jeremy, I want you to let everyone know to get a hold of you real quick. And then George and I on Candy.
You can check me out on Kneecap Biting with Smoking Jeremy B on YouTube. You can check me out also on the South Florida Tribune.com. We're under the Motor City Tribune heading. I'm on a list of authors with wonderful guys like George Oikon, the guy here that I've been talking to. Scott's our publisher. Candy's the one that puts all the stuff out there. And without any of these guys, I don't think I'd be half as good as I am. And
Well,
all
I'll say is you come a long way, you know, and anybody that possesses a work ethic, energy with you, we don't make you good. You make yourself good. All we can do is support you. And you've come a long way in the short time we've gone and look forward to a lot of big things out of you.
And you can find me here every Monday that Scott does a show because I don't miss this one.
And, and wherever else I insert you as well.
Yeah, I'm a yup guy. Can you do this? Yup.
Yeah, that.
All right. Have a great evening, everybody. And try every day to be a better person than you were the day before, because that's the only way to make the world a better place.
You're the best, Jeremy.
Amen, brother.
Your next show, Jeremy. Thank you, buddy.
Until next week.
You got it.
Adios.
All right, so it's the three of us left here. All right, Candy. Now everybody can see your Packers cap.
That's right.
So with that said, let me go ahead and split her up a little bit so that we can do that. Any parting shots of your own? Jeremy did a good job, Matt, Patricia. I think really what's going to end up happening there is I wouldn't be surprised if the New England Patriots are going to bring on Bill O'Brien out of Alabama, and they need to do something with that offense. Matt, Patricia, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't really care. All right. Candy, why don't you give me a parting shot?
Well, my parting shot, I know this is a Michigan show, and I know you guys are not necessarily Rodgers fans, but I have to say and give you guys this. As much as people think Rodgers isn't loyal, he is the longest tenured active player of any sport that is still playing for his original team. He has played his whole career with the Packers, and he's the longest one to do it than any other. I give him a lot of credit. Yes, a lot of people will say he got paid immensely. He should have taken less money so they could have afforded more weapons. That's on him, and he has to live with that, and that's probably part of what is going to go into his decision in this offseason. Whether you like him or not, whether you think you have to win Super Bowls to be the greatest, I'm not saying he's necessarily the greatest, but you have to give him a lot of credit. Playing the quarterback position in the NFL, there are so many other teams that have had so many other different quarterbacks. I forget what was the stat last night, Scott, that we were seeing when they were talking about how many different quarterbacks have started the NFL this year. It was crazy. Right. So you have to give him a lot of credit. Is he the Iron Man that some of them had their streaks? No. But is he a prima donna? Does he have attitude? Yes, he does. He plays with some confidence. Is he the same as he was a couple years ago? No. But he is still the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers, and I will back him.
Well, you should. I mean, my all-time favorite quarterback was actually Brett Favre of his Iron Man streak. But
ironically, Brett Favre's last. Now, I don't know if this was Aaron Rodgers' last game. If it was, it ended the same way Brett Favre's did, with an interception thrown as his last completed pass.
No, we'll see how it plays out. All right, George, what's your parting shot?
My parting shot is to applaud another quarterback, a guy that was kicked by the side of the road by Sean McDermott. His name is Jared Goff. And the Lions have gotten a quarterback now, and they can stop looking and dreaming about drafting a quarterback, at least not in the first round, because Jared Goff has been phenomenal. He has really cut down on his fumbles, his interceptions, and he's doing great with the play calling as well. So I want to applaud Jared Goff for an outstanding season in Detroit. Yeah, you only won 3 games last year, but you came back with 9 this year. So it was a good trade. As we know, we've talked about it on this show many times. It was a thievery kind of a trade by Brad Holmes, that trade with the Rams. So hats off to Jared Goff and the fine job he did this year for the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, Sean McVay. You're thinking.
Yeah,
of
Sean. Yeah.
McVay. Yeah, I've done a good job. It's amazing, and you are right. I have a parting shot of my own, but it's amazing what a difference a year makes. It really did. You know, Matthew Stafford wins the Super Bowl championship this year. Doesn't make it a season due to injury, unfortunate. But I'm glad Matt got his Super Bowl ring nonetheless. I am really happy with that. My parting shot really is kind of a different one of sorts, and that's this. You know, we've talked about Baker Mayfield contributing to 3 teams not making it to the playoffs. You think about it, it began with Cleveland, and then Carolina, and now the Rams. If I were Baker Mayfield, I would stay right where he's at. And don't chase the money. Okay, don't do it. Let's see what happens with Stafford if he's able to come back. But again, part of his decision might be attributed to Sean McVay staying around, and we'll see whether he gets burned out like Dick Vermeil. So Baker, go to a place where they like you, and don't chase the money at all. And as far as the Detroit Lions are concerned, what can I say? You can make your decision in terms of evaluating certain players, but make sure Jamal Williams gets retained at all costs. Here's a guy that broke Barry Sanders' record, albeit in a 17-game season. It doesn't matter. You get 17 touchdowns in a year. You're doing some awfully good work. You really are. And I think that, we talk about a Lions-Packers rivalry here. Well, Jamal Williams, right, decides to go ahead over to the rival. And how did it turn out? It's on national television. So I don't know. Yeah, to me, it's one of those things where, divisional rivals see each other a couple times a year. So what players are productive and versus which ones are not. So I know, we covered a lot of ground with the Lions not getting the respect as Rodney Dangerfield hasn't. But, you come off a 9-8 season, first winning season, I think since 2017, I believe it was.
I believe so.
Yeah, don't rest your coattails on just that itself. Okay. You have one winning season. You need to go for another one. Go ahead, Candy.
I have one more parting shot if you're.
Go ahead.
So my parting shot is last week, Monday, many people witnessed Damar Hamlin getting injured on the football field. Kudos to the NFL because every team has rallied around him getting better. So I want to say kudos to the NFL because in a time when there is so much division amongst everybody, to come together and to honor him, to all salute him, to the teams before the games. Some of them, I know the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Tennessee Titans, even though they're on opposite battlefield battling, they came together in the beginning of the game, kneeled down at the half line to honor him and to have a moment of silence. Kudos to the NFL. Kudos to everybody that helped Damar Hamlin, the medical team, the fact that he was able to go back to Buffalo today and in a Buffalo hospital now and is getting better. Kudos to you.
Well, I'll add one little footnote with all the attention that Damar Hamlin's getting. Chuck Hughes is getting a lot of it now too, because now that this thing's a week into it, more and more people are learning about what happened with Chuck Hughes on October 24th, 1971. So,
yep.
As far as I'm concerned, a lot of people didn't know much about Chuck, but you know what? Here's a guy that's the only guy that still has died on the field, and I'm just glad that Damar Hamlin wasn't one of those. So, with that said, Katie, go ahead and let everybody know how they get a hold of us one more time. I want to thank everybody for joining us on this edition of Fire Up Michigan. It's great to have Candy on once in a while doing a show that she probably wasn't crazy about doing. I know the Packers are on the wrong end, but Candy's a team player in every sense of the word, and we appreciate everywhere that she can help us out. And she's just one of the more knowledgeable people out there. More power to her. And you know what, Ben Johnson, here's a little advice. Don't go to the Texans, okay? Look for a much better job than that one. Listen to what they have to say and find something else. All right, Candy, take us home.
So for all of you that are watching, if you see a red subscribe button, hit it, please. Then you can watch all of our shows. This is Fire Up Michigan. We have Fire Up Wisconsin. We have Fire Up Florida. We have Fire Up. We have Inside the Pigskin. We have 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. No Limits. Let's see, what else do we have? We have Sports Exchange. We have Real and Rare. And sometimes that is really rare. But come over, watch our shows, give us a like, give us a subscribe. Check us out on Facebook, on Twitter at Tribune South, Facebook at South Florida Tribune. We also have a website, www.southfloridatribune.com. Email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Listen to us if you'd like the audio version on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts. But please remember, hit that red subscribe button. We're trying to strive for 1,000. What number subscriber will you be?
All right, George, you have a book. People want to know about it.
Yes, I do. Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air by Arcadia Press. There's a link to it on the column, Motor City Tribune, that I write for under the South Florida Tribune banner. And the book is about sports broadcasting in Detroit, chronicling the days of Ty Tyson and Van Patrick and Ernie Harwell and Ray Lane. And our own Scott Morgenroth. Scott, you're featured in the book too. A nice picture of you interviewing two of my all-time favorites, Jimmy Connors and Muhammad Ali. So there's a link to that book. Makes a great gift for somebody. And you can reach me at SNG Sports 99 on Twitter or gicorn@yahoo.com. You can also find me on Facebook as well under my name, George Icorn.
Very, very good, George. Yeah, obviously, I feel privileged to be in the book. You know, I know Candy did an awesome job talking about all the shows. One show to watch out for more of will be No Limits, where I'll have my opportunity to do a lot of one-on-one interviews. Jacob Christner actually had me on Pundit's View, where it's his one-on-one show as well. Jacob participates on the Sports Exchange on Wednesday night, and I'm with him on a couple of other shows as well. So with that said, we want to thank everybody for joining us on this edition of Fire Up Michigan, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Everybody enjoy, have a great holiday rest of the season. Boy, my head is still in the holidays, but football season to me is holidays. It doesn't matter. And we look forward to seeing you next week on Fire Up Michigan, as well as the other shows that we have scheduled. So please, once again, subscribe to South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. And you can follow us on Twitter at Tribune South as well. If you're watching it, you can see us on Twitter as well. Candy, well done. George, well done. Jeremy, well done, even though he's on his own deal now. And we will catch you next week. Good night, everybody. God bless. Be safe out there. Enjoy playoff football, even though the Lions aren't in it. They certainly made a lot of things difficult for a lot of those that aren't in it. So take care, everybody, and have a good evening. Bye now.